All right, friends, we're continuing in chapter 7 today, wrapping up this week the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to look again today at something just like we did yesterday that can easily be misunderstood and at times even misused. So I'm going to read it. We'll talk about how it's often misinterpreted, and then we'll talk about what I think is really going on here. So beginning in verse 7, ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, will give him a scorpion? If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Here's how this can easily be interpreted. Look, if you pray and you pray the right way, then you're going to get what you asked for. Now, look, it is rarely put that simply, but that basic explanation is what a lot of us are tempted to think is going on here, which makes us either think we're not praying in the right way or that we can't really trust what Jesus is saying because it doesn't always work out that way. You know, it's like we turn God into a vending machine. If we put the right thing in and push the button that we want, then we ought to get the right thing back out. You know, it's just not that way. If you put a couple of bucks into a vending machine, you're going to get your Coca-Cola. But if you pray, you don't always get exactly what you ask for. So what's going on here? Well, one, let's look at the example that Jesus uses. Which one of you, if his son asks for bread, gives him a stone? Or if he asks for fish, gives him a serpent? I said scorpion earlier. I don't know why I said that. Who would do something like that? Look at the examples. He doesn't say, which one of you, your kid asks for a new Voltron toy and you wouldn't get it for him? I mean, who, when their kid asks for Andy's frozen custard, the best frozen treat in Dallas, who, when they ask for that, doesn't give your kid that? No. He's not talking about things that people want or desire here. When he talks about bread and fish, he's talking about their needs. I mean, who doesn't hear their children cry out for something that they need and respond? He's not talking here about us crying out about everything that we want. But he's talking about our needs. So that's number one. He's talking about when we cry out, we ask, search, knock for our needs. And then here's the second one. You know, I don't know about you, but there have definitely been things that I've prayed for that I thought were needs that I didn't get. Let me ask you this. Is there anything that you have ever prayed for in the past that now you're grateful that you didn't get? I mean, I can certainly think of things that I prayed for that I can now say in retrospect, it would have been detrimental for me to receive those things. I mean, there are things that I can look back on and I'm grateful that God didn't provide what I thought was the bread, that he didn't provide. And think about this. Aren't you glad not only that God hasn't answered all of your prayers, but aren't you glad that God hasn't answered all of everybody else's prayers? I mean, think about some things that would have happened in your life if God answered somebody else's prayers. Now, you may not know what they prayed for, but you can kind of read between the lines. There are definitely some prayers that have been prayed that if God had answered them probably wouldn't have worked out great for me. So one, he's talking about needs here. Two, we have to trust that in his infinite wisdom, he knows that sometimes some of the things that we pray for, even if they feel like needs, are not actually what's best for us. It could be that unbeknownst to us, we're praying for serpents and he gives us fish. You know, we think that the serpent is what we need. But God actually knows what's the fish. and what's the snake? Okay, then number 3. So 1, it's about what we need, not what we want. 2, that sometimes the unanswered prayers are what's best. And then I think that this is something that my eyes are just being opened up to here. I think what this is, and a commentary that I read pointed this out, is that I think what this is that it's an invitation to explore like the extent of God's generosity. I think that's really nice. Meaning that we're invited to pray not just for our needs, but for our wants, provided that we understand that He's not a vending machine. We're invited to explore the extent of His generosity, to pray for things that may seem wild or outlandish, to pray for these things, to pray these big, bold, laughable prayers, to explore the extent of His generosity, not expecting anything but our needs to be met, but exploring in prayer His generosity towards even those wants and those desires. Think of that like with our kids. I mentioned Andy's earlier. Our kids love Andy's frozen custard. They ask for it all the time. Now sometimes they ask for it to the extent that it becomes obnoxious and I have to shut the asking down. But what are they doing? Well, they're exploring the extent of their parents' generosity. Will they buy us Andy's every day? Will they buy it for us once a week? Will they buy it for us after every sports practice? They're exploring the extent of our generosity. And by and large, Amy and I don't hold that against them. Now, when we do run into trouble is when they get upset with us when we don't answer that desire. But I just love framing this in this way. What's Jesus saying? Ask, search, and knock. You can trust, 1, that God will provide for your needs. 2, that He will only give you those things that are good for you, even when you don't know what's good for you. And then it's look. In prayer, just explore the extent of His generosity. Here's what I'd encourage you to do. I'd encourage you to pray some big, bold, laughable prayers. We'll talk about laughable prayers later in Matthew. Some big, bold, laughable prayers. Prayers that if you were to know they'd be answered, like you just laugh because it seems so outlandish. Pray those big, bold prayers. I think that is what Jesus is encouraging us to do here. Not to push the button on the vending machine and expect a Coca-Cola, but to push the button hoping and literally praying for one. Trusting that you're going to get the water, you're going to get your needs, but praying also for those wants and those desires. Trusting Him. What does it mean to be men and women and teenagers and children who walk in the way of Jesus? It means living a life knowing that God the Father cares about us, that He hears us, and that He wants to know our desires, and that He knows better than we do whether those desires actually will work out for the good for us or not. So God bless you, friends. Hope you have a great rest of this week, reading through Matthew 7, and we'll have another Bible study at the end of the week, wrapping up Matthew 7. But of course, I'll be back with you at the end of the week. We've got other stuff in the next 2 days also. God bless you, friends, and I'll see you soon.